Can you tell us anything about the life of Napoleon Bonaparte that fascinates you the most? So Napoleon is a fascinating personality. His entire life is fascinating. It's a very adventurous, action-filled life, and he rose out of obscurity and achieved so much. So let me tell you just some highlights from his life. So once again, let's go to the map because maps help a lot. So we were in Greece. Let's go further westwards. So this is Greece. Now we are in Italy, as you can see. And to the west of Italy, there is this island called Corsica. So this island was historically owned by the Genoans. Can you see the city here, Genoa? So this city was a very wealthy city state in ancient Italy, in the Middle Ages, etc. And they owned this little island called Corsica. It's not a little island; it's a reasonably well-sized island, and it is on this island that Napoleon was born. So he was born in the town of Ajaccio, or whatever it's called, whatever the pronunciation is. So that's where he was born. He was born in the year 1769. And what's interesting is that at the time it was Italian territory, and when the Genoese sold the island to France, Napoleon's father fought the French. Fought the French. He fought the French occupiers. So Napoleon was born Napoleone di Buonaparte. It's an Italian name, Napoleone di Buonaparte. That was his real name. So his father fought the French on this island, and eventually the rebellion failed, and he made his peace with the French, his father, Napoleon's father, and he was appointed as the emissary of the Corsican people to the Emperor of France. So he went to Paris and he developed good connections with the French. And it is these connections that enabled Napoleon, the young Napoleon, to go to Paris and to go to France and enroll in a military school. So he enrolled in a military school, and he had a lot of problems because he spoke the Corsican language. He did not speak French. He learned French quickly, but he had this thick rural Corsican accent for which he was mercilessly teased, but it made no effect on him. He was very strong-willed, and it was soon found that he was very good at mathematics and logic and tactics, especially at geometry. So his tutors advised him to join the navy, because geometry is a skill that is very useful in naval affairs, especially in naval combat, etc. So Napoleon considered joining the Royal Navy, the British Navy, because he did not feel any particular allegiance to France. But then he decided to join the French army, the infantry, the artillery division, because even in artillery, you need a great deal of geometrical expertise in geometry, projectile motion, distances, and all that. So he joined the French army. He was in the artillery division. And that's when, in 1789, the French Revolution happened, which was a terrible, bloody affair. So he went back to Corsica for some time, for a few years, while the revolution played itself out in France. And then he returned to France. He rejoined the army, or he rejoined his regiment, etc. And then he had a very interesting initiation combat. So there is a city of Toulon over here in southern France, on the coast, on the Mediterranean coast. So this city was at the time, so France had undergone this revolution. The monarchy was overthrown. A revolutionary government was in power. And this city, Toulon, was held by royalist forces, and it was helped by the British Royal Navy. So the British Royal Navy was over here in the harbor of this city. They were protecting the royalists with their firepower, and this was threatening to become a big rebellion that would basically undo the changes that the French Revolution brought about. So what Napoleon did was, he, as a young officer, let me show the actual map. So as a young officer, what he did was he brought his artillery regiment to this city of Toulon. Okay, and there is a hill which overlooks the city. This hill here, it's called Mont Faron. So he had his troops climb this hill with the artillery. He was injured in the attempt to take the hill, but he was able to take the hill. And from here, he was able to threaten the Royal Navy, and he was able to evict them from the harbor of the city. And because of that, the French were able to retake the city, and the revolution was saved. And this catapulted Napoleon to a great deal of fame, and it advanced him in his career, and so on. And then he was appointed as there was a lot more developments. He even foiled an insurrection in Paris. He opened fire with artillery in the heart of Paris on the insurrectionists. He basically killed 1,400 plus people with artillery firepower, and he again saved the revolutionary government, because of which he was given a big advancement. He was given the charge of the army of Italy. So he went into Italy. He fought many battles there against the Austrians, because when the revolution happened, France lost a lot of territory outside France, which the monarchy had held. Revolutions are dangerous, and these affairs they cause sometimes more harm than good to a nation. So France had lost a lot of territory in Italy. He went to Italy. He regained all the territory from the Austrians, and that again embellished and burnished his credentials. After that, he basically went to Egypt. He wanted to cut off the British trade routes to India. So he entered into an alliance with Tipu Sultan, the butcher of Mysore, and he invaded Egypt with the hope of conquering this country and cutting off the British trade routes to India. So he initially met great success, but eventually the British Navy under Admiral Nelson was able to destroy the French fleet. And so it was an inconclusive affair. So Napoleon went into the regions of Syria, Damascus, etc. And from there, he went back to France. In France, he engineered a coup in Paris, right? He engineered a coup over there. And he essentially became the dictator of France in a very short period of time. He wrote a new constitution, and he proclaimed himself consul for life in France. And he installed himself in the royal palace in Paris. And then what happened was that many other things happened. I'm just going very, very quickly through history. In 1802, so during the French Revolution, slavery had been abolished in the French Empire. But in 1802, Napoleon re-established slavery in the French West Indies, especially Haiti, this place here. And there was a Haitian rebellion, which actually succeeded, and it drove the French out of Haiti. So Napoleon found that, and at that time, the French had a great deal of territory in the present-day United States. So Napoleon found that this was too much of a distraction, so he sold this territory to the Americans, to the United States, which was at the time only limited to the east of the country. This was called the Louisiana Purchase. An enormous amount of territory was sold to the Americans for about $15 million. And then so that's what he did in the Americas. In 1803 was the Louisiana Purchase. In 1804, he was proclaimed the Emperor of France. He was given the crown by the Pope himself. And in 1805, he became the Emperor of Italy as well. So he achieved so much in such a short period of time. I will not go into the entire history of Napoleon. There's a lot more to cover. But as you can see, he's a fascinating character. And he's one of the most interesting characters in all of world history. So that's a little bit about Napoleon. Very interesting character. I would recommend you study about you read up about his life and his history and his career. He was an adventurer. He had a guerrilla mindset. He had a mercenary mindset, and he basically came out of nowhere and became the Emperor of France. Fascinating story. And he was very ambitious. At the end, he tried to overreach himself, and it cost him everything. But what a life he lived. What a life.